This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Well, greetings everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Terrible pictures are being shown all over the world, it seems, from Germany, from the streets of Hamburg. While the G20 summit is going on, you have quite a few thousand demonstrators clashing with the police. Now, we have to understand and correctly analyze what is going on there. These demonstrators are not in any way portraying the overall feeling of the German and European people. These demonstrators are anarchists. They are left-winged Marxists, let's say, communists. They are there to create chaos and confusion and resorting to violence. But it's still a very frightening picture to see that and to see how the police is trying to handle these anarchists. But it is also true, of course, that there are two leaders during the G20 meeting, that summit, who are pretty much despised in especially Europe and in large parts around the world. And these two leaders are Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. It's also remarkable that now there has been a secret meeting between Trump and Putin for over 2 hours. And during this meeting, there were only 4 people present and 2 translators. Allegedly, things were discussed regarding Russia's interference in America's election process, which of course Mr. Putin vehemently denied. And then they talked about a ceasefire regarding Syria, which supposedly is going to start on Sunday, which, by the way, will not last and won't do too much good in the long run. But these meetings will not change the perspective of especially Europeans when it comes to Vladimir Putin, who is looked upon as a threat, and also Donald Trump, who is looked upon as somebody who has departed from the world scene, and with him, the United States of America. Now, I listened to an interview by Vice President Mike Pence yesterday, in which he said that the world appreciates the leadership role of Donald Trump. And I had to shake my head and say, well, what planet is he living on? Because the opposite, the total complete opposite is true. And what I'm going to present to you now, although I will be reading from English-speaking papers and news reports, it reflects what, for instance, the German press has been saying, and I have been reading those articles very, very carefully, and of course they are in German. I didn't want to take the time to translate all of that, but it accurately reflects what I'm going to read to you now. And I am not just reading magazines and articles from one particular political spectrum. I am reading them across the board. And that is what the true picture is, and you have to understand, and you cannot follow fake news, no matter where it comes from. First of all, here is an article by The Guardian, dated July 2. This is the Trump paradox. 5 months into his presidency, the more he tries to assert U.S. leadership, the less of a leadership role he plays. For someone who campaigned on the promise to make America great again, the reality of government has been an exercise in looking weak again and again. The article continues. Instead of promoting American leadership, Trump is leaving a vacuum in Europe that is being filled by the German-French alliance. The pace and the depth of Trump's decline is astonishing. That is the truth, my friends, not what you might be hearing from some propagandistic concepts because people want to appear as if they are accurately and objectively reporting as to what Mr. Trump's stance is in the world. Here's another article by CNN. Well, CNN, of course, not necessarily a friend of Trump, vice versa, but what they are saying here is true. They wrote on July the 4th, increasingly, top foreign policymakers from Germany to Iraq and Canada to Asia are contemplating a period when U.S. leadership that many took for granted may be less evident in global affairs. It's not just uncertainty about American global strategy that is convincing some allied leaders to look past the United States. Trump's unpopularity makes it much more difficult for them politically to support him. And in comparison between Angela Merkel and Donald Trump, unanimously almost, with two exceptions, Mr. Trump is far down in the popularity scale. Bloomberg added on July 3, when world leaders meet in Hamburg on Friday for the G20 summit, China and Germany will move in to usurp the US role. The two industrial powerhouses of Asia and Europe are being nudged into an informal alliance to pick up the leadership baton that the US is accused of having dropped since President Trump became president this year. Trump risks finding himself alone against a united front of European allies, neighbors such as Canada and Mexico, and America's former Cold War foes. And what we have been hearing so far, what happens today on Friday, is exactly in line with what these articles are telling us. Now, it's just not only China and Europe. Japan is another key player. Here's an article by Deutsche Welle, which reported on July the 6th. EU and Japanese officials have reached an agreement in principle on a free trade deal. Both the EU and Japan have stressed that the pact is a rejection of the kind of protectionism US President Donald Trump advocates. And the Washington Post added on June 6 that this trade deal covers nearly 30% of the global economy, 10% of the world's population, and 40% of global trade. So here you have it. The reality is that America is withdrawing from the world scene, and former allies and others are trying to fill the vacuum, and they are doing it. And that is in complete and total line with biblical prophecy. Because, my friends, I know many people don't believe it. Many people don't agree with it. Most people don't want to hear it, especially here in the United States. They don't want to hear it. And the Bible has foretold that as well. People have become sick of God, of the Bible. They don't want to hear the truth. But the Bible tells you, my friends, that the United States of America is going down. The downfall of the United States of America under President Trump is inevitable. And the relationship between the United States of America and especially Europe will deteriorate to a point that we will face nuclear war from the European community. 10 nations or groups of nations giving their power, giving their authority to a charismatic military political leader in Europe will attack the United States, and we, my friends, will lose in this fight, in this war. It's prophesied. Are you asleep? Or are you waking up and understand what is going on? Some people just don't. Some people think that, oh, well, it's going to be great and America is going to be great again under President Trump and we will have much more time maybe to repent. No, the opposite is true. God has said it's going to be a very close call now. Unless you wake up now, it's going to be too late. Do you understand that? I'm afraid most of you don't. I'm afraid most of you don't even want to hear programs like these. But whether you hear or whether you don't hear, it has been told today. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Lenk for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by the Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.